So for those who don't know, the Worldwide Developer Conference for 2024 has just passed. For those who don't know, that is Apple's kind of like presentation to show the next line of products that they want to push out for the year, and as well as new features and things we can look forward to when it comes to software updates and the like. This particular time, I would say the main takeaway for the WWDC was the implementation of AI with Apple technology, which is something they've been behind on. And their own proprietary AI is going to be called Apple Intelligence, right? And that was something I wanted to talk about. Then I realized I'm pretty sure I haven't spoken about AI as a concept on this channel yet. So this video is going to be about defining AI and going over its three main categories that are under the umbrella. We're not going to get into like the different specialties yet. We're just going to fall in or touch on the three main like categories or subcategories of AI that we can talk about, and we'll probably build on this over time. So when it comes to figuring out what artificial intelligence is, I'm pretty sure we don't have to go far for this. We've been familiar with this concept since 80s, 90s. So many movies have been made about AI and just the advancement of technology and how it's going to take over everything, and maybe even take over the world. And even if the technology doesn't take over the world, it's probably gonna at least like nerf us and weaken us as humans, because we won't have to think as much. We're not going to be working as much, or AI is going to take over so many jobs that's going to also add to the job crisis. A bunch of different layers to it. But I'm pretty sure we're familiar with the concept. But for those who don't know, artificial intelligence is pretty much as it sounds. When something is artificial, it usually means it's man-made, generally speaking. So we're talking about man-made intelligence. And when humans develop these AI programs, they usually put them into machinery, and those machines, those robots and things, can basically move closer, not quite, but closer to like human behavior, right? And that's like the bare level minimum thing you need to understand when it comes to AI and what it is. Now, before we get into the kind of like different categories of subcategories of different types of I want to make sure this is kind of understood. AI is an umbrella term. So while it is its own thing or its own category, or at the very least, that's how I framed it for this video, it's also an umbrella term that contains other stuff below it. So some of the other versions of AI that falls under that umbrella is what we're going to be talking about and defining before we eventually touch on Apple Intelligence and some of the other updates Apple's going to be making, and maybe other stuff in the tech realm as well. So we're going to be touching on three main points. One is artificial intelligence. And like I said, it's intelligence that's man-made, created by man and usually uploaded into different pieces of technology. The key detail with this first category, if you will, is these pieces of technology, these like robots and things, they develop at least a low level ability and capability to learn and adapt to their surroundings and their circumstances. So that's just artificial intelligence as a whole, but that's also kind of its own tier in itself. The second one is called machine learning, or ML. This is one of those terms that falls under the AI umbrella. It's a form of AI. So with AI, like I said, it's meant to allow technology to have closer to human behavior, including being able to adapt to certain situations that they are confronted with or that they experience. Machine learning is basically that. It emphasizes that detail of AI, the ability to adapt based on experience, and it applies it to algorithms. And I'm not going to get into what algorithms are and the different kinds, but technology can do a lot of tedious tasks for us, a lot of tasks for our jobs and in our personal lives that are tedious, that are repetitive, and all that stuff, and we usually don't like to waste time on it. The whole point of machine learning is to make it so that artificial intelligence can do that stuff for us. This can go from household stuff like iRobot stuff, you got a robot doing your dishes, but in terms of like actual tech work, you're probably looking at something closer to like data analysis, which is still manual these days, but AI is getting to a point where it's probably going to take a lot of data analysis tasks out of a lot of people's hands. And the key thing with machine learning is, if we're sticking to data analysis, your data is not going to be the same all the time. The numbers are going to change, the values are going to change, the time period that you're looking over is going to change. A lot of these things are going to change. That's where we as humans have to adapt to our workload so that we give good information to our management, who uses that information to make good business decisions. AI, the machine learning part of it, the whole point of it is to adapt to those changes in the data. And this is just one example, but that's the whole point of it. Because traditional AI doesn't necessarily mean that all forms of AI can adapt to the work that we do and the circumstances we deal with. Machine learning is a form of AI that pretty much specifically tackles that part of it. The third category is called deep learning. And this is the same way machine learning is a form of AI. Deep learning also is a form of AI, but it's also kind of like its own branch of machine learning in itself. So we kind of just skipped a couple categories here. So deep learning, just to keep it simple, is basically the same as machine learning, but there's one very big twist and detail to it. Deep learning, it uses neural networks to perform the types of analysis of algorithms and adaptations that machine learning and artificial intelligence in general can do. Neural networks means that these are computer systems that have been specifically designed to mimic the human brain. Neural means our brain. So they're using computer networks similar to the human brain to automate and to handle tasks for us that we don't want to do ourselves. This is closer to your iRobot situation because those things, they were autonomous. You could argue they were sentient, or at least, the main one that kind of woke up and was defective, I guess. But they were sentient. They took care of things for their owners, their family members, whatever, until the whole glitch happened and that whole thing. So if you are worried about an iRobot type apocalypse at some point, or a Black Mirror apocalypse at some point that has to do with robots and technology kind of getting a life of its own and then they kind of screw us up, you're worried about the deep learning side of things because depending on how they are built, they will look like us or they will resemble things in real life. They will know how we think. They will be able to most likely get ahead of us because they can predict our movements. They know our habits as humans, all that stuff. So if you're worried about that type of apocalypse, deep learning is what you're worried about. Now, AI, as creepy of a thought as it is, depending on where people are taking it. And I remember seeing an article of someone that voluntarily quit working at Google because Google's making advancements in AI. And I guess some of the stuff that they saw behind the scenes was pretty scary. So who knows if we're too far off from that type of iRobot future, right? But when it comes down to it, AI is helpful. At least the current form of it is pretty helpful. And like I've said multiple times, it's very helpful mainly when it comes to taking off certain tedious and repetitive tasks off our hands and frees up time and therefore allows us to pay attention to other projects and business activities that we need to take care of that might be more of a pressing issue. But normally you would have to take care of the tedious stuff or maybe delegate it to somebody else. And now you got to worry about whether or not they're good enough for the job and all that stuff. So AI is useful in that sense, in that it frees up time, frees up energy, and maybe even make you feel more secure in terms of making sure that someone can do a job, or something in this case can do a job to the quality that it needs to be done. That way you're not as worried about double or triple checking the work of someone that you delegated a task to, but you still want to make sure they did something right, because if you just follow their results blindly, you'll probably get in trouble or there will be some type of issue later on. Another thing that AI is useful in is called NPL, or natural processing language. This is kind of like your chat bots for customer service and stuff like that. It basically allows computer systems to understand human speech. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but basically, computers and all forms of technology do not communicate using human language of any kind. They communicate using what's called binary code, zeros and ones. You've seen it in TV shows and movies. Hackers see a bunch of zeros and ones hacking into stuff. And you're like, what the heck is going on? That's all binary. The zeros and ones is how computers actually communicate. They do not understand actual human text and speech. NPL closes that gap for us. And I already brought this one up earlier, but data analysis. And data analysis is very important because everyone has to make business decisions. Management, senior management, C-suite people, all that stuff. These are the people that steer the organization, or at the very least, a division of an organization based on the information you give them. But all of the information that we work off of, at least in a tech sense, corporate, usually comes off of numbers. So that's where numbers are pretty important. And that's why if you're a STEM person and you focus on math, you would be a great data analyst, because you're familiar with numbers. You understand how certain things work with each other. You can probably come up with good equations on the fly, all that stuff. That's where that comes in. Data analysts, you can argue, are the core of an organization's ability to make sound business decisions. But that would mean the data analysts would have to be good at their job and to not accidentally give bad information, which would lead to their management or C-suite people, directors, whoever, to make a bad business choice that they potentially cannot come from, or a bad business choice that will just be very hard and expensive to shake off and allow them to move on, and they may lose money, trust of the public, trust of their clients, stuff like that. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this video off here. Hope it was helpful and informative. And I still plan on talking about AI, Apple intelligence, but wanted to make sure we understood what the original AI was. So gonna go ahead and leave it off here. If you have any comments and feedback for me, share that with me in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.